Guys, and welcome to our third lesson of our Instagrammer Pro tutorial already. In the first two lessons we talked just about the behind the scenes and also the light setup, and this is the first start. We're going to start with our pre-adjustments, taking our image to Camera Raw, doing pre-adjustments, and then into Photoshop. On the left hand side here in my content area in Adobe Bridge, you guys can basically see the whole selection from the shooting. So again, starting from early in the morning all the way through, working with the lights, working with the model, all the stuff. Now, before I continue and also go to our final image here, I just want to show you guys something. So first of all, I had the model just without the hand, just taking a photo, and kind of like the composition and also the whole set. Now then as well, I actually said to him, hey, look a little bit to me so I can see a little bit more of your face. And as well, I asked him to maybe just like wave at his friend or something and kind of call his friend and just bring the arm a little bit more into the whole photograph. But it somehow just leaded away from the whole main element here, which is the sun and also the sunrise, and it looked kind of weird and distracting. So again, I actually asked him to just hold his phone, something like this, and that I really liked, but I just wanted to see a little bit more of his face. So then again, I moved also, over here we can see the trees, so it kind of looks nice, but if I'm going to add another phone on top, it's a bit distracting. So for me, I moved a little bit closer in and said, okay, this kind of composition works really nice, could also look really nice on the phone, but now I'm just still missing your face a little bit because it's obviously also about you, the person, the Instagrammer. So again, he moved a little bit to the side and looked somehow into the distance, and this was kind of the first shot that I really liked. But for me, it's a little bit too bright, so we dimmed it down a little bit and took also his expression looks kind of a bit strong. So again, a few shots, and this expression kind of looked just really relaxed, looking up into the distance. So this is also the main image that I'm going to work with. Okay, so I've done my selecting here as well. On the left hand side, you guys can see I'm just giving it 5 stars and also color here. This is just normally my workflow. I give certain images stars and then sometimes rate them and say, okay, this looks a little bit better, or this one. So I'm happy with this one. I'm going to double tap on this and also take this now into Camera Raw and start with my first pre-adjustments in here. As well, on the left hand side, again, a few tools here. On the right hand side, I'm not going to explain in this tutorial how to work with this software. Learn that on our free tutorials page. This tutorial, we're just going to work straight on this image. Now, also at the bottom here, I'm going to open the workflow options first of all. And in here, I'm going to choose Adobe RGB 1998 color space. I'm pretty happy with that. Color space works pretty good for printing as well. Then depth, I'm going to work with the 8-bit channel due to my screen recording here and the tutorial. Normally, I work with 16 bits, more color channels, and also higher quality files. So I would prefer you choose an 16-bit file here. Then as well, the size, I'm going to just keep it to the full size, and also resolution 300 and pixels full size. Then also sharpen here for none. I don't want to sharpen it extra for the screen or anything, just keep it to none. This time I'm going to say open as a smart object. Yes, because I want to take or create a duplicated copy of the smart object, bring it back into Camera Raw and do a few pre-adjustments. I'm going to talk you guys through this right now. But before, I'm just going to hit OK. So basically what I want to do is, first of all, a pre-adjustment just for the person over here with also my basic sliders, and then again take it through a smart object via copy back into Camera Raw and just adjust this area down here and just brighten this up a little bit further. Okay, so that is why I also work with a smart object for the moment. Now also here on the right hand side, first of all, we're going to work just with the basic sliders, but before that we're going to go straight into the detail sliders. And under detail, I normally push my raw and also sharpen my raw already a little bit. So again, let's also zoom a little bit closer over here, somewhere a little bit closer on the hair. Normally you can see the effect really nicely on the hair. I'm going to take the amount of my 150% and also radius all the way down. And you guys can already see how that sharpens the image quite a lot. Again, the before, let's also take it all the way down. And here before and after, it takes a little bit to render. Before and after, so it boosts that sharpness quite a lot. A lot of people actually say you shouldn't sharpen in Camera Raw. I think, or I normally do it all the time and nobody notices it. And secondly, I think we've got such high quality already files from the camera that it wouldn't damage the file or anything. It works pretty good. So again, I'm going to set the amount to 61. Yeah, and that's pretty good. Now again, I'm going to hold or actually press Command 0 because I work with a Mac. If you are a Windows user, you have to hold Control or press Control. All the time when I press Command, you have to press Control. So for this, we want to set our image back now. I'm going to press Command and 0 on the keyboard, and that switches it back to full screen. So we don't need to work here with our zoom functions. You can also do that. You're welcome to do that if you want. Okay, great. Now we're going to go back to our basic adjustments here, and we're finally going to work just on our image. Also, before I start working with these adjustments and sliders here, normally people say you have to work with this temperature, that, and go through all the sliders. I say there are no rules. Literally go as you, and as you work through your image, it's also a bit of feeling, obviously, and personal taste. What I normally do is start with my exposure, then maybe highlights, then also work a little bit with shadows, then I see, okay, a little bit more blacks, then the contrast and the saturation goes up, then I desaturate a little bit, then I add a little bit of exposure again, so kind of that flow. There's not a way of working from the top to the bottom. And then as well, also my exposure, say for instance, if I'm going to start with exposure now, I normally take the slider all the way to the left, all the way to the right, and then somehow move it a little bit again and see kind of where I want to go with this. And for instance, with this shot now, I can already see that I want to have it somewhere around minus 30, 20. Yeah, minus 30 looks good already, because I want to just saturate and just give this a little bit more orangey color here. Obviously, again, as earlier said, I'm also going to just brighten this a little bit again in our second smart object via copy. Okay, so also I'm going to start also with my temperature right away here. I'm going to actually take it a little bit cooler, just to 5300 or something. So it's a little bit more actually cooler here. 5300, somewhere around there. Because it's already setting, and it was actually already pretty good adjustments here, my white balance from the start, ready from the shooting. Then as well, I'm not going to work with my white balance here with any presets here from Camera Raw. I normally do everything under my custom settings. Okay, great. Let's also work a little bit now on the highlights. I want to push the sky a little bit and also his highlights a little bit. So let's take the highlight slider up a little bit further. That pushes it quite a lot. Yeah, maybe just to like a +9, +10. That's good already. Shadow wise, I also want to open the shadows just a little bit. So let's take the shadow slider up a little bit. Again, as you guys can see, the kind of the way that I'm working. I really like how the shadows actually brighten up down here at the bottom, so I might even use that for a second adjustment. Now for this part here, I'm also looking more at the person here, not too much at the bottom part. Also a little bit obviously at the sky and also at the sun. So I'm going to set the shadow to just a +10 or so. Yeah, +11, that's fine as well. My whites, I'm also going to push that up. Boost those a little bit, like a +8, 10 as well. Okay, blacks, I want to give that a -2 or 3. Alright, all of that increased the saturation on him. So I want to take the saturation just like a -2. Obviously in Photoshop I want to do another adjustment layer to just work separately on his face so he's not looking all red. Okay, contrast wise, let's also take it up here just for the sky a little bit. +3, 4, yeah, it's just getting really dark, so let's maybe just go like a +3. Yeah, and so far I'm pretty happy actually already with all the adjustments here, and I'm basically done already. So this is all I'm going to do in Camera Raw. I'm going to hit Open Object now. That will take us right into Photoshop. Okay, so as you guys can see, we are now in Photoshop, and we have also imported this base plate now as a smart object. So first of all, I'm going to double tap on here and rename that as just base plate or basic, whatever you want to call this. I'm going to call it base plate for the start. Now as well, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to brighten up this area a little bit here. So I don't want to do that with an adjustment layer. I actually directly want to do this just with shadows in Camera Raw. It's quicker and easier as well for me. So what I'm going to do is just go again to my layer here. I'm still in Photoshop. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's not too distracting. We've got Camera Raw in the background, actually Bridge in the background. So what I'm going to do is on the layer, hit right click and say here new smart object via copy. You can't copy it via dragging it down to the new layer icon here. That will not be the same effect, because if you drag it down all the way just like that, you will have two of the same images and layers, and if you select the first one and adjust it, the first one will also be adjusted. So you have to do it via this step. Right click on the layer, new smart object via copy. Okay, great. So we've got again base plate 2, and I'm actually going to rename this now just to brighten. So you guys also know when you open this PSD file that you know exactly where you are in this whole process. Alright, I'm also going to double tap now on this little icon here, which actually means that this is a smart object. So double tap. That takes us back into Camera Raw, as you guys can see now. And now literally all I'm going to do is just work a little bit on this area down here. So again, I'm going to keep all the settings, but this time I'm not going to pay too much attention at the guy here. Let's just take the shadow all the way up, so we're brightening up it really nicely. A little bit further, a little bit further. Pretty happy with that. Also the blacks just down a little bit for the contrast again. Yeah, and maybe let's also work a little bit with the contrast here, like a -8 for the blacks, and also shadows to +7 or almost +80, and contrast like just another +8, +10. Okay, great. Then I'm going to hit OK again. That will take us back into Photoshop with this new smart object. Boom, and directly we have again our second image here in Photoshop. So as you guys can see now, that's why we're doing also a smart object via copy, because now we have our first image set and right and our second image as well, and none of those both have been affected or so it's separately. Again, here's the before, or the first one, and the second one, before and second one. Okay, now I don't want to go and continue working with the smart object throughout the whole PSD file, because it's going to take too much of my RAM and slow everything down. So what I'm going to do is select both images via holding Shift, or basically both layers, press right click as well, and I'm just going to say rasterize these layers. So they're basically no smart objects now, just plain normal layers and images. So if you also struggle with RAM, you can kind of do the same process. As well, I'm going to go back here to maybe just my dock, and say right click here and quit Adobe Bridge. So also I've got more RAM, more speed on my computer. Let's select Photoshop again, and what are we going to do is also press F now in order to have a nice full screen for Photoshop, so we can literally see everything here and we're not distracted by our background. Great, okay, we've got all of both of these images imported now through Camera Raw. Again, here's our before and after. On this base plate, what I want to do is also hold Alt and create a hidden mask, because we just want to paint in all the bottom parts here from the city and from the nature. We don't want to cover the guy. And as well, I'm not too happy with also the brightness here from the mountain, and also the sky looks a little bit dull. So again, hold Alt, select the mask icon down here, and that will basically create a hidden mask. Now on the hidden mask, we're also going to press B for the brush, white foreground color, again 100% opacity, and I'm also working with the Vacom Continuous 5 Pro tablet. So via my tablet I can easily change my brush size all the time. Throughout this whole tutorial you will see me do this. This basically means I'm changing my brush size really quickly. If you don't have that, there's another option. You can also hold Control and Alt together. Keep on holding them, then take your pen tool or your mouse, move left and right, and you can either change your brush size via that, but still keep on holding Control and Alt. This will now change the diameter as well, and you can also, it has another function, you can go up and down, and this will also adjust your hardness of your brush. So again, you will see me do this quite a lot of times in the whole tutorial. As well, if you don't have any of that, or you think that's still distracting, you can also use the open bracket and the closing bracket here to change your brush size. Okay, and literally the last step is you can also go to the top here and just under the normal Photoshop menu, change your size and hardness as well here. Okay, let's get back to our tutorial. First of all, what we're going to do is here our base plate, we're going to just paint out the whites a little bit. Basically meaning all this area down here, I want to brush that out. My brush is super hard now, so I'm going to press Control Alt, change my featherness all the way down to 0%, also white foreground color, 100% opacity, and just on that mask I'm slowly going to brush. And 100% opacity is quite strong though, but I can either now take down my opacity or I can take down the layer opacity, and in my case I'm actually going to take down the layer opacity. So again, let's keep on brushing a little bit, and I'm going to be a little bit carefully in here. I don't want to brighten up the jacket from the guy. Okay, and that's also why my brush is super feathered, so I can brush a little bit easier. Now I'm also not brushing like this. I'm actually going to take my loop here and, to just show you guys how I work with my brush. I'm not working like this with the center point. I'm literally just working like this. Tap, 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 all the way around. And as you guys can also see the outside from my loop here, that's kind of where my brush will be affecting the area. So boop, 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 somewhere around this. Great. Okay, so you kind of get the point. Throughout the whole tutorial you guys will learn more about this as well. Okay, and I'm pretty happy so far with this. I want to do another dot over here, but with 100% opacity it will just be a little bit too much. So let's see, just take that down to 20%, one big dot over here, another dot and another one, so double or 3 times. As you guys can also see here from our mask what's actually happening. Okay, great. Then also a little bit more here. And yeah, I'm so far pretty happy with this. So again, our before and after, and we can still take the opacity down just a little bit, maybe to just like 70%. As you guys can also see now, I'm taking the opacity drastically down really quickly, like this, and then I bring it up a little bit, little bit. Yeah, somewhere around 70 to 80%. That actually looks good. Again, before and after, before and after. So already a little bit of an adjustment here. Now what I'm going to do is also take both of these layers, hold Shift, press Command G. Again, Windows users, remind yourself, Control G please. And again, I'm going to write here just Start, or Basic actually this time. So you guys know this is the first base plate that we've done and we've created already in Photoshop. Okay, yeah, and that's also all for this first lesson already, just about importing your images from Bridge into Camera Raw into Photoshop, doing pre-adjustments. In the next lesson, we're going to start with some help layers and also talk through nodes and stuff that we need to remind ourselves while working on this file.